We all like to go travelling around the world, exploring new places and new cultures, but some places in the world are just way too scary to visit. On today's list we have some quite disturbing entries that may shock you, especially when we get to number 1. So get yourselves comfy guys and let's take a look at 10 scary places around the world that you won't want to visit. Number 10, the island of Dolls, Mexico. Imagine going to an island that's full of scary looking dolls. Well, situated in Mexico, this is what you will find, the island of dolls. Dolls of various styles and colours are found throughout the island, and the dolls were originally placed by the former owner of the island, Julian Santana Barrera. He believed that dolls helped to chase away the spirit of a girl who drowned on the island years ago. He died in 2001 of a heart attack, but sources say that he was close to the same spot where the young girl drowned. Some people who have visited the island have reported hearing a child's laugh coming from the distance, and some have even heard the sounds of splashing coming from the same spot where the young girl had died. Number 9, Pripyat, Ukraine, the Chernobyl disaster. If there was ever a poster child for eerily abandoned places around the world, then it would have to be Pripyat. Established in 1970, the city had reached a population of nearly 50,000 by the time it was entirely evacuated after the Chernobyl disaster in 1986. Pripyat has remained an empty city since the evacuation, although the buildings, furniture and all other signs of life are exactly where its former citizens left them. Old books can be found in classrooms, decaying dolls lie abandoned in cribs, and photographs are still in their original frames. The most famous landmark is the Pripyat amusement park Ferris wheel, a skeletal reminder of what the place used to be. After the Chernobyl disaster, the nearby city of Pripyat was not immediately evacuated. The townspeople in the early hours of the morning went about their usual business, completely oblivious to what had just happened. However, within a few hours of the explosion, dozens of people fell ill. People reported having severe headaches and metallic tastes in their mouths, along with uncontrollable fits of coughing and vomiting. And to this very day, there is still high levels of radioactive. Number 8, the hanging coffins in the Philippines. If you want to visit the dead in Sagada in the Philippines, you'll have to look up rather than 6 feet under. The people of this region are known for burying their dead in coffins attached to the sides of cliffs, like an aerial cross-section of your average cemetery. The tradition goes back thousands of years. Carve out your own coffin, die and get hoisted up next to your ancestors. Many of the cliffside coffins are hundreds of years old and all look completely different, as they were specifically made by the person who now rests inside them. What makes this place quite unnerving is if you do visit this cemetery, there is a good chance that when you look up at one of these coffins, you will see certain old coffins broken and cracked, with skeleton heads sticking out underneath the coffins. Definitely not a pleasant sight. Number 7, the Capuchin catacombs in Italy. Out of all the catacombs in the world, none are quite as creepy as Sicily's catacombs. The macabre space was created back in the late 16th century, when the cemetery at the Capuchin monastery became overrun. Religious men were originally intended to be the exclusive residents, but once word got out about the natural mummification processes occurring in this space, it soon became a status symbol for local citizens to earn a final resting spot there. As a result, the underground tombs now contain around 8,000 bodies divided into separate corridors, including one for religious figures, one for professional men, one for children, and even one for virgins. The corpses are displayed like a museum exhibit, dressed to the nines and arranged in grotesquely lifelike spots. You'll definitely need a strong stomach if you visit this one. Number 6. Snake Island, Brazil. Located about 90 miles off the coast of Sao Paulo, Snake Island is one of the most dangerous islands in the entire world. This site earned this title due to its insanely high density of golden lancehead vipers, and some studies report an average of 1 to 5 snakes per square meter. When sea levels rose some 11,000 years ago and separated Snake Islands from the mainland Brazil, the newly isolated snakes became hyper-evolved and hyper-terrifying. Without any ground-level prey on the island, the snakes learned to hunt in the treetops and strike at birds from the air, pretty much becoming flying snakes. And because they couldn't track down the birds and wait for the poison to kick in, their venom adapted to become 5 times stronger than that of their mainland counterparts, capable of killing their prey instantly, as well as melting human flesh. Because of their potency, the Brazilian government bans the public from ever setting foot on the island. Number 5. Destitute Cemetery City. In Guatemala City, they have run out of room for burying the dead in the ground. So now the dead are stacked on top of each other in separate graves, and it pretty much looks like a city for the dead rather than a resting place. Now, after the dead have been placed here after 6 years, then the family who are still alive have to pay rent every year of $24. If the family don't pay this, then people will smash open the graves and dispose of the bodies to make room for more dead people. Now, this has even appeared in worldwide news after dead babies were being taken out of their coffins after parents were struggling to pay their yearly rent, and these dead babies were being tossed away as if they were just trash. There are some very heartbreaking and disturbing photos in online news articles of this happening, but I would strongly avoid looking at these. But it's safe to say that this is definitely a scary and disturbing place to be in. Number 4. The Suicide Forest in Japan. Sometimes referred to as the Suicide Forest in Japan, there have been a crazy amount of suicides that have taken place over the years. In 2003, 105 bodies were found in the forest, exceeding the previous record of 78 in 2002. In 2010, the police recorded more than 200 people having attempted suicide in the forest, of whom 54 completed the act. The most common means of suicide in this forest was by hanging or drug overdose. Now, there are a number of conspiracies and theories about why this is happening in this particular forest. A lot of people say that there is a curse in the forest, and if you walk too far into it, then something happens, making you want to take your own life. Now, of course, this is just speculation. However, this forest definitely makes a very scary place in the world. In recent years, local officials have stopped publicizing the numbers of suicides in the forest in an attempt to decrease people from committing this tragic act. Whether or not if this has actually worked is anyone's guess. Number 3. The Cabayan mummies. In caves in the northern Philippines lie mummies, some of which are thousands of years old. Now, these mummies are curled up into pods and they look incredibly creepy. What makes these mummies unique is their process of mummification. Basically, mummification began shortly before a person even died, where the person would digest a very salty drink. Then, after the person's death, the corpse was washed and set over a fire in a seated position, which caused the fluids in the body to dry. Then, smoke from tobacco was blown into the mouth of the corpse to dry the body's inside and internal organs. Eventually, herbs were rubbed into the body. Mummified bodies are then placed into the coffin pods made of pine wood and laid to rest in the caves. This is definitely not a place that I would want to ever stumble on. Number 2. The Catacombs of Paris. Underneath the famous city of love lies a creepy underground tunnel network that many people aren't aware of. The catacombs are a massive underground graveyard with tunnels that go on for miles and miles. It's highly likely that you would get lost in this catacomb of mazes. It holds the bodies of over 6 million people, and it was originally built as an effort to eliminate the city's overflowing cemeteries. Down in the catacombs are walls made of bones and skulls, and because this is all underground, there is little to no light. There have been rumours that urban explorers have gone down into the catacombs, but they never returned, adding fear into one of the most scariest places on Earth. Before we get to number 1, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We currently upload 2 new videos every week, so please make sure to hit that notification bell as well. Number 1, the ceremony of cleaning corpses. Now you might be thinking, why is Toraja on this list? Well, if you happen to visit Toraja at a certain time of the year, then you might be in for a massive shock. For the Torajan people of Indonesia, death is part of a spiritual journey. Families keep the mummified remains of their deceased relatives in their homes for years, before they are eventually buried. Even then, they are regularly exhumed to be cleaned and cared for. Torajan families tidy up the mummified bodies and they entomb every 1 to 3 years, usually around August. Relatives who may have been dead for well over a decade are removed from their crypts, cleaned of any bugs, changed into a fresh set of clothes, and wiped and sprayed from head to toe. The families also pose for photos with their dead relatives before they are put back into their coffins. So if you ever plan on visit Toraja, I would double check and see when this ritual is taking place, as you might be in for a horrifying discovery. And that was 10 scary places in the world that you don't want to visit. Let me know what you thought of this video in the comments box below. Was there something on this list that completely horrified you? Let us know your thoughts. Okay guys, well thank you all for watching. We will see you again very soon.